On the Democratic Newsroom this week, one of the biggest headlines, it's been talked about all over the country. It's been a trending topic, and it has once again, like virtually everything else these days, deeply polarized views, both online as well as offline. In case you haven't already guessed it, I'm talking about the sweeping changes to textbook content by the NCERT, specifically on issues like the Mughal period, on Gandhi's assassination, Nathuram Godse, the 2002 riots, and many other things that we on India Today also have been putting the spotlight on. We've raised the questions, but there are lots of opinions, and all of them have a place here in the Democratic Newsroom. Joining me live here on the Democratic Newsroom, Rajdeep, Preeti, Gaurav, and Akshita. We, of course, always get into the big topics of the week. This time, it is the sweeping changes to our textbooks. Rajdeep, starting off with you, you've dived into this story as well on your show. What do you think about this?
Look, my belief is history writing must be left to professional historians, not politicians. The problem is the moment politics enters history, it gets poisoned, left versus right. You know, let's tell you can't erase the Mughals from our history. The Mughals represent part of India's great pluralistic culture. How can you just eliminate them and only show them as villains? I'm not saying suggest that Akbar was the greatest leader, but at least tell us about Akbar. Let our young read about Akbar. Let them read about other great leaders of this country, Maharana Pratap, Ahoms. Let them read all the great historical figures. But this attempt to erase selectively to suit a political agenda is where I draw the line, because you are then going the Pakistan way. This is what Pakistan did with history, which is why generations of Pakistanis have grown up hating India. And that, to my mind, is unacceptable. Is that what we want? Young Indians hating anything to do which is even remotely considered Muslim or Islam?
Gaurav, political agenda, that's how the, this selective removal of topics from textbooks is concerned? Do you think that's what this is?
Gaurav is looking at me very angrily. I'm very scared.
I completely agree with Rajdeep Sardesai, and I do that Mughal history should never be erased from India's history textbooks. Because this country must know what Akbar was all about. That Babur was an invader in India. Babur was not from this land. Akbar, in the Battle of Chittor in 1568, had 40,000 Hindus killed. He had the Janayu of those people measured to know how many Hindus had been killed in the siege of Chittor. And this is a history book not written by politicians. It's a historical account written by James Todd. Let me also tell you what Akbar did at Prayagraj, what he did at Banaras. Again, this is not history that's been written by politicians, but I want to quote, Akbar rewarded Badauni, a Mughal historian, with gold coins for his gesture of declaration to soak his beard with infidel Hindu blood. This is what Badauni writes. Let me also get you what Father Montserrat, not a politician, not right, not left, in India. Now he was a Jesuit, a Portuguese Jesuit. He writes the religious zeal of the Musalmans had destroyed the idol temples. In places of Hindu temples, countless tombs and shrines of Musalmans had come up. Hold. If you permit me, none of this is by politicians.
There is more to history than just hatred to the Musalman, my friend Gaurav. All you are doing,
I am not saying hatred. I am sorry, I am not saying hatred.
All you are doing is that.
How is this hatred? This is a historical fact.
I mean, there is also Din-e-Ilahi. There are various other aspects.
Yes, so please tell. So the Marxist historians will focus on a Din-e-Ilahi, but not tell you how Hindus were killed in Chittor. But this is just point one. Permit me. I'm a student of history. And permit me, so you had a Jahangir. You know, Mughals are part of this country, so Babur may have been an invader. Akbar was born in this land. Jahangir is from this land. Jahangir had the 5th Sikh Guru, Guru Arjan Dev. You know, he compiled the Adi Granth. Jahangir in 1606 had him killed. You know how? Made to sit on a a plate of hot plate and killed. And that wasn't the
No, but
only one.
many of the atrocities-
Hear me. Permit me
Now,
one more.
we can't have Mr. Sawant only
Permit me
telling
one
us
more.
Okay,
all
Only
you have
let me come up to
Aurangzeb.
15 seconds, Gaurav, then we'll go to the other. I'll bring up the other points
Atrocities
also.
by Mughals cannot be the only basis of history. Na? India's history is a civilization history.
Is it only about also?
It's only
I need
about
to
trying
frame
to
the
portray
debate.
good Hindu, bad Muslim.
Yeah.
That's all that it
Preeti,
is.
coming to you. I'm just saying.
So
we need to
Deen
frame-
Ilahi is good Akbar the Great. Let's ignore the fact that he had 40,000 Hindus killed in Chittorgarh.
Let's also frame the debate about whether you expunge Mughal history entirely, or as Gaurav says, tell the truth about the Mughals, which basically I think he's suggesting you've got a correct history to show the real
So will we
picture
tell the
of
truth
the
tomorrow
Mughals.
about Shivaji? Shivaji has his strength. Shivaji also did things which today,
Yes.
you know, in hindsight will be looked
For
at.
example,
The plunder of Bengal.
For
The plunder of
example-
Bengal, when Shivaji's forces would go into Bengal or Surat, and the plunder that took place, these were
you know,
rulers,
and what
emperors.
was
These
Surat
were
all
rulers,
about?
great rulers.
Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was the founder of the Hindvi Swaraj, sir.
There is
He fought the Mughals.
May I-
He
May
fought
I-
for the
Okay,
freedom of
they're
the
all
country.
great
Yeah.
But we are still talking about the
One minute.
textbooks.
May I get a word
No,
in?
you'll get a word in. All I want to say is, because I come from Maharashtra, let me make it clear. These are great rulers. Shivaji was a remarkable ruler. But if tomorrow you're going to take Shivaji in all his aspects,
Yes.
then we will have to look at the darker aspects
Or
of any.
please look at Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj
let
in
Preeti
his
come in.
entirety, and you will not find a better Hindu ruler in this country,
Preeti
sir.
and then Akshita. Yeah.
All right. So, you know, I believe everybody's been permitted. So, I'm
Yeah.
also going to be permitted to say what I have to say. And I want to begin with the sheer fact because, you know, Gaurav belted out all these facts of how the atrocities of the Mughals. Great. The sheer fact he's been able to do so is because it was taught in history books. Right? So they might be invaders. The fact that it was there in history books. What's happening now? You know, instead of rhetoric, I just want to come down to what's really happened. 7th standard is when Mughal history is introduced to students. That entire 2 chapters have been taken out. So medieval history, for those 200 years when the Mughals were around, the kids in the 7th standard are not really going to learn about the Delhi Sultanate or Mughals. I want to say one thing, and that's it. And I think that would encapsulate what I really want to say here. That we have to look at history dispassionately, Shiv. And, you know, and when you look at it, from, for example, 20 years from now, from 2014 to 2024, when political history in this country should be and will be encapsulated. It should be encapsulated from the eyes of the BJP, where the abject political dominance of the BJP and the abject decimation of the Congress. It cannot be written from the eyes of the Congress. It would be wrong. It has to be written from the objective of the BJP that the BJP dominated, and it should be known. So to say you have to balance it out, we have to, you know, balance history. History is not supposed to be balanced.
History can't be balanced, but this is also about reflecting perhaps the reality. Akshita, what do you think? Because here we're talking about, you know, anywhere between completely erasing chapters and updating chapters to reflect a reality.
No, I think we're all in agreement at least on that, whether it's Gaurav or Rajdeep or anyone
nothing
else,
should be
that nothing
expunged.
can be expunged.
Yeah.
Quite simply.
I'm glad we're there because a lot of it has been expunged.
No, so that is something we're all against.
Great,
We're
I'm
all
fine
against.
with
But
that.
the question is, what
Teach
kind of
everything.
narrative do you want to
Yeah.
put out, right? When Gaurav lists out some of these facts, did we know about it? I think all of us know about Jodha Akbar. Do we know beyond that?
No,
There's
of
a
course
question
I
mark
knew
on that.
that.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because basic education also
Who
we
says
talk about
students
that.
of history, of
Let me
higher
explain
history
to
do
you,
not
sir.
know these debates that
These
Gaurav
are
Sawant...
what
You know,
we
Gaurav
just said.
Sawant is making it out to be as if this has never been taught.
No, I'll tell you
it
why,
has.
sir.
Which class?
No, I'll tell you
Which
why,
class?
sir.
Why
Let
should
us
you
see
have
which
to
class?
know sixth and
Which class?
Seventh-
Which
Sixth
class?
and seventh
Seventh-
standard
Which
students
class
should be
taught
taught
you?
basic
Which
history.
class
I'll tell
taught
you,
you?
you
Where
tell
Akbar
me.
called
You
himself
use
a
the
Ghazi?
word. You
Where
use
Akbar
the
called
word
himself a
higher
Ghazi?
history.
Said, let me, you know, the beard should be with Hindu infidel
Sir,
blood.
you use
Which
the
class
word
taught you
higher
that?
history. You use the word higher history. We're talking about school education and setting the narrative right from the beginning. Why do we not
setting
refer to the
narrative,
Mughal
ma'am?
dynasty?
It's about ensuring that history you
Do we
don't blank.
not-
I'm not calling for blacking out period, but I'm saying do not also show a history without any positive attributes. And thereby, by the manner in which Mughal history is being
paint it
erased,
as it
you
is.
clearly want to suggest that they had no
No,
contribution.
paint it as it is. We can't
History is a
expect
continuum.
positivity
Okay,
and
leave out
so
Mughal
overshadow
history.
facts.
Okay, leave out Mughal history. I just
No,
want
look
to
at
come
the
down-
way Gandhi's,
I
the
want to come
Gandhi
down-
Godse
one
debate.
second.
Let Mr. Gaurav Sawant tell
No,
me.
I want to
Let's
come
come
down
to
to
the Gandhi
contemporary.
issue.
One second. I want to forget about the Gandhi issue. I want to come
So
down to
I wanted
contemporary.
to come back
May
on
I just finish?
Aurangzeb.
I'll come to you.
May I
know,
just
at one
finish?
point of time.
So, you
No,
know,
he wants to come back to
may I
Aurangzeb
just
because all
finish?
he wants to do is play bad Muslim, good Hindu. That's all.
I want to come down to contemporary.
It's history.
I
That
want
is
to
your
come-
interpretation. I only want facts and
Okay,
public
we'll give
domain.
everyone
Okay,
a
okay,
fact.
sir,
Up to
facts,
you.
facts.
get a
You
word.
want politics.
I want
One second.
facts.
Let
Okay,
me
You
get
want
a word.
politics.
Okay.
I'll come, Gaurav, I'll come back to you.
Next he will say Taj Mahal was
second.
built by someone else.
Okay,
I will
I
come back to you,
Say
Gaurav.
Fatehpur Sikri.
I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you.
May I?
If you
Let
can
Preeti get a word. Guys,
Gaurav,
Gaurav, I'll give you a chance to respond. Let Preeti
I'm sorry,
I
I'm
stay,
sorry.
get a word.
I
Let Preeti
stay
get a
on
word.
facts, Rajdeep.
Okay, let me talk
Simply
about
on
facts.
Okay.
Let me talk about simply facts. Now, simple facts in contemporary history, which has been now, where chapters have been taken out. For example, you know, I'll ask all of you, I'll ask our viewers. The sheer fact, forget about the Mughal era, contemporary history from 1947 till now, every social movement in this country has been deleted. A child in our school right now in CBSE, NCERT syllabus will not know that there was Naxalism in this country, there was a Chipko movement, there was a Narmada Bachao movement, any of those, any social movement. Every chapter has been taken out. Can I finish, please, sir?
Even emergency.
I'm talking about, you know, let me go one by one. The sheer fact that you've got one chapter in sociology which has been included, which you have to opt for in the 12th standard to actually know that there have been social movements in this country. I find that appalling.
No, I
That
get
do you not think kids need to know about Naxalism, whatever your history is?
No,
Number two, the mention of riots, Gujarat riots, all mentions allegedly have been taken off, while there are other riots which are there. So you've got to be, you know, balanced if you're
Akshita and
talking
then Gaurav.
about
Akshita and then
that.
Gaurav.
No, I agree with Preeti on this, that these are issues that we have to come up with. Look, overall, the debate should also be on how our education system needs to be reformed, right? There are these additions, these deletions that we need to talk about. And I think what also stood out for me was your conversation with the NCERT chief when he said, beyond textbooks, let them learn. And that is the biggest problem. They're saying that, you know, if it's not in your textbooks, you think they're only learning from it. I think we have to also be realistic that, yes, they have the internet, but we have to ensure that our textbooks cover these basics, right? Whether it's the Mughals, whether it's the Chipko movement, whether it's the emergency. We talk about all of it, which we're not doing right now. It's deletion now that we're talking about, but before this, were our textbooks perfect? No, it didn't have a lot of stuff.
Gaurav?
So if I come back to the topic which Rajdeep says is Hindu-Muslim, the fact remains, let's talk
No,
about
I'm saying
Shah
there's more
Jahan.
to history than being Hindu-Muslim. I think
So,
a good point was made.
okay.
A lot of contemporary history, simply because it doesn't suit whichever is the ruling establishment, is often
So
erased.
in
Why
70
should students
in
not know
75
either
years-
about the emergency of
I don't know if it's the
1975
ruling
or
establishment.
Naxalism?
I don't know about
or
the ruling
contemporary-
establishment. You yourself said the emergency isn't there. The emergency parts also have been removed.
So my point is,
No,
all of
only by
that
the
should
way-
be there.
No, okay,
So I don't think
Let
one
Gaurav
second
make his
ruling
point. He
was
wants to make a
actually-
point.
I'm saying I will tell you what
has
there is
been
more to
removed
the
from-
history debate than just Hindu, Muslim
Okay,
or Mughal.
I'll tell you what has
I
been
want to
removed.
understand why,
Akshita.
for example, that
Akshita.
today Gandhi's assassination is sought to be positioned in a way which is completely
I'll
different
tell
to
you
what
what
it
is
was.
removed from the
Why?
emergency.
Because it's embarrassing. That's the
part
reality.
of the emergency that has been removed is the fact that the Jansangh at that point of time did not take part in the movement.
Okay.
That is, and what they did at that point of time, that whole chapter has been removed. from that.
Gaurav, finish your point, yeah.
So, for 75 years, we've studied history with a slant is the allegation from one side. The allegation now is you're studying history from another slant. Let's look at history as facts. Look at what's happening in South Africa, for example. Whatever's happened, there was a truth and reconciliation effort based on which they're moving forward. Once you have truth and reconciliation based on facts, you build the foundation of a very strong nation. That is what is required, not selective erasing. For example, if the Mughals were deliberately targeting Ayodhya, Mathura and Kashi temples, why were they targeting Ayodhya, Mathura and Kashi? Because that's the base of the civilization that we come from in this land. If an effort was being made to remove it, let's rebuild it. Let's rebuild it in a strong way so that our civilizational roots remain strong to build a strong nation. Ayodhya, Mathura and Kashi. Let's study the correct history. We will move forward in a positive way.
Look, if, as Gaurav is saying, that history textbooks over the years have skimmed over atrocities committed by Muslim leaders, maybe it was done at that age in the immediate aftermath of partition to ensure that communal passions were not ignited. There was obviously also a Nehruvian school of historians who perhaps also were felt that history needed to be taught in a particular way to ensure that the young didn't sort of get into a Hindu-Muslim enmity. I have no problems if over time you want to change that, review that, no problem.
And get
But
facts out.
But
Facts.
do not portray it in a manner where one side becomes only villainous and the other side becomes only heroic, because that is dangerous. Similarly, what is happening on the Gandhi-Godse debate also is fitting into
Are
that.
you willing to do
over
both?
time,
Are you willing to
there's
do-
an
are
attempt
you
to
willing to do that
legitimize
with Gandhi
almost
and Godse
Godse.
also?
No,
Are
there
you
is an
willing to
attempt being
portray-
made. There's an attempt being made almost to
tweaking.
legitimize Godse in some form, to try and give a rationalization for what he did. I think all of that is dangerous,
So-
because all of that shows that political
So you can be
poison,
selective
that's
some
not
places,
true,
you
that's
cannot be
propaganda.
selective in some places.
That's not true. No, all I'm saying is that I think we need to get out of who's the hero, who's the villain. History is complex, complicated. When you're young, you need to give them basic facts. Over time, if they develop interest in it, they can go and explore much more and have more, a more reasoned debate. But let's not get into politicizing history. That's my problem. It's
So for
all
75
about
years,
politics at the
if
moment.
75 years there's been politicization of history, if pendulum has gone on one side, it will go on the other
That's
side.
what about
It will.
tree.
I am not
That's
doing what about
tree.
Sir, I'm a student of history.
It happened then, so
Sir,
why is...
no,
why
I am a
actually-
student
that's
of
exactly
history.
what it is.
I'm a student
Sorry?
of history. I will give you pure facts. I'm a
Gaurav is
student of
saying
history.
that Gaurav seems to be
No,
saying it happened for 70 years, 75 years shift. So why,
No,
the
no,
pendulum has swung, so now we are going to do it our way.
I'm not
What?
saying we.
What rubbish is
I
that?
am sorry. I'm not saying we. I am saying
Oh, I thought
now.
you're writing the book.
I am writing you facts from.
No, you said you're a historian.
I'm not a historian. That is how you misrepresent facts. I said I'm a student of history.
We are all
I did not
students
say
of
I'm a.
history.
We are all
I'm
We are
not-
all students of history.
So Shah Jahan, for
student of
example,
India.
there was a massive famine in Deccan. Yeah, 1630 to 1632, millions died. Shah Jahan, 2 years later, starts building the great Taj Mahal. Okay, Aurangzeb. You said let's not make it Hindu-Muslim. Of course, it should never be Hindu-Muslim. It should be
You're
fact.
only focusing on Mughal rulers.
I am sorry. Well,
That's all you're doing.
That's the debate, on television every day on Mughals being removed from history. I am saying
No,
don't
that's
remove.
because
I am
television
saying
want-
don't remove Mughals.
television
Tell
wants to
them,
demonize
tell them.
Muslim-
I am
Television
sorry,
wants
tell
today's-
them how
today's
Aurangzeb,
Gaurav-
had Guru Tegh Bahadur beheaded in Delhi.
Agree.
Bhai
Gaurav-
Matidas,
Gaurav-
Bhai Satidas,
Gaurav, answer me a
stored
simple
alive,
question.
burnt alive,
Answer me a
boiled
sim-
in a cauldron.
Answer me a simple question. Should today's Muslims pay the price for what Aurangzeb
Do
did
today's
for
Muslims
400 years
identify with
ago?
Aurangzeb?
No, they don't.
Good.
I
Then
don't
why
believe they
should-
do.
Why should they be
They
worried?
certainly don't.
Yeah,
Then why should they be worried?
This is not a sociological
Because it goes
debate.
into politics, that's why.
We're talking about the politicization of textbooks. The fact that it has happened for many, many years, this isn't the first time that there has been selective, redactions or removals from our textbooks, is one argument that is actually being made at this point of time. So is this government involvement in trying to shape history textbooks an inevitable part of the governance process? It's always happened and it's going to happen.
Yeah, but this is what, as I said at the outset, Shiv, is what happened in Pakistan. An entire generation, 2 generations of Pakistanis grew up only on hatred towards India. Today you will now create 2 generations of Indians who will only grow up on hatred towards the Musliman. Is that what you want to do?
No,
that's
it will not
exactly
be.
what you
I'm
want to
talking
do.
about
That's
truth
the
and
tragedy.
reconciliation.
You don't want to
Truth-
you
truth
don't
and
want to tell me a truth.
reconciliation.
It's not about truth and reconciliation.
Guru Tegh
It's
Bahadur
about
being beheaded.
propaganda.
Guru Tegh Bahadur being
But
beheaded
one
is
second, the
propaganda.
fact is-
No. Guru Gobind Singh Ji, Guru Gobind Singh Ji,
You know,
and
that
the
when
four
we can- the
Sahibzades,
fact
is that propaganda?
If we want to get into rhetoric, those 10 examples that Gaurav is giving, I'm sure they are true. But there'll be 10 other examples where the Mughals have been inclusive of Akbar. There have been so many examples which have been taken out. So I'm not getting into that. The point
I'm
is,
stating facts. I'm not going into
this is
rhetoric.
also facts. It is rhetoric beyond a point of
I am
time.
on facts.
There is a point here, Preeti, that basic history, when you look at the Mughals, for example,
True.
you will see your book say Akbar the Great. You won't see any of these points being mentioned. So there is
There's-
a slant
He
right
was
now.
a remarkable ruler.
Of
As
course,
was Shivaji.
he killed 40,000 Hindus.
As was Shivaji.
Remarkable.
As was Harshvardhan. As was Chandragupta Maurya.
Maybe talk about the atrocities of all of them.
Prayagraj
second.
is
I
a
wanna-
historic Vedic
Because
city.
we keep
Prayagraj
talking-
converted to Allahabad. Oh, what a remarkable
So
ruler.
why can't
Because
we
you
be
are
100%
to answer you.
transparent?
I
to
am
answer
so
you.
sorry,
Now, you
Rajdeep.
said-
Akbar was not great.
Okay, okay, so what you said that we've only known of Akbar the Great, actually no. You've known, there was a chapter called Akbar the Great in your 6th standard. In your 7th standard, when we moved in, you had an entire chapter on Mughal expansion which talks about the atrocities of Akbar. It does talk about that.
Like
I'm
what?
not, I'm sure quite few of the ones which Gaurav has...
I can speak from example, and I'm not a student of history beyond school, and I can tell you that my experience as far as studying Mughal history in school was almost overwhelmingly positive.
Exactly.
You know, it was overwhelmingly positive.
It was
Didn't
always
know,
wow.
I'm not saying that's right and wrong. As we wind down this debate, Rajdeep, the question I'd like to ask is it wrong for, you know, for those who are sensitive about, you know, history having been one-sided for so long? Are they completely wrong, or can you just dump it and say, listen, you can't allow propaganda to come into our text?
All I'm saying is have a dialogue. You see, the problem is we are caught in our echo chambers and unwilling to have a dialogue with each other, and therefore we have those who will look for the worst, for example, in the Mughals, and those who will want to focus on just the greatness of them. I'm saying history is complex. I was just this morning listening to a podcast of William Dalrymple on Bahadur Shah Zafar, and I learned of the, you know, he was a remarkable genius in many ways in what he did for culture and his role in 1857. Now, you know, the fact is that we need, you know, this city in which we live, Delhi, the huge contribution that the Mughals have made, are you going to eliminate them?
Where are the big temples of Delhi?
You know, look,
where the Birla Mandir
did we not learn that the Mughals, did we not learn
you know,
in school
where are
that
the big temples?
That the Mughals desecrated
you know, there are
the
four,
temples in the
you know,
country?
Rajdeep, I'm sure you know, Sanatan Dharma, which is Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism and Sikhism, 4 religions that came from this land. And there are no big temples in Delhi.
The only negative connotation that we've learned in our textbooks about the Mughals is the word invaders, and I think it's
the fact that they destroyed the temples. They've talked about in detail how each of these temples was destroyed by
are we going to look at Hinduism's destruction of Buddhism?
I also want to learn. I also want to learn about Angkor temples. I want to learn how our culture spread across so many lands. You know, Rajdeep, have you ever?
It seems that you only want history textbooks to be about Hindu culture.
No,
I want it to be about Indian civilization.
Have you heard of King Lalita? Have you heard of King Lalitaditya Muktipada? You know, he spread the expanse of this empire. We don't read about him in our history.
We can go on and on. Settling scores.
We're out of
Collateral is going to be the student.
There's a reason why this is called the Democratic Newsroom, because we all have our say. It is a contentious issue. It's an emotive, it's a sensitive issue. It dates back to a subject and a time where all of us feel very sensitive, and it's something that we've all been through because we've all studied history in school. We all know about the Mughals, so this is something that hits a certain place.
As long as you don't poison the minds of our young.
In political season...
As long as we speak the truth to the next generation, so that there's truth and reconciliation.
On the Democratic Newsroom... Okay.
It's not going to happen as
I'm going to have to crack the whip now.
True. I agree with that.
I have to crack the whip.
Will prevail.
They've altered it. They've removed. They
okay.
haven't done
we will do a part 2 on the Mughals, maybe, and the textbooks. And you know, given how 2023 is going so far, I think I have a feeling we're going to do the Mughals many more times here on the Democratic Newsroom. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks to all of you.